Some stories begin with love. Some begin with loss. And some begin the moment everything falls apart. This is Scarlett After Dark. Scarlett After Dark.
I'm Scarlett Stone. This is The Unraveling, a story about a secret affair, a dissolving marriage, and what it cost to want the wrong man. Let's get into it. Chapter 14. Everything was hot, until it wasn't. David and I went back and forth, hot and heavy, through the spring and into mid-June. The sexting had resumed after the Soho hotel, with a kind of urgency that felt like making up for lost time. 9 months of silence collapsed into an avalanche of want. We went from, "I wish you were with me," and him telling me he wanted my pussy in his mouth so bad, and me writing back, "I want that too, so bad," and he'd just say, "God," one word, like it was all he had, to something that consumed entire days. He'd wake me up in the middle of the night to tell me he'd done a thing. I knew exactly what that meant, so I'd grab my vibrator, do the same, and report back in full detail. "Show me your wet fingers," he'd say, and I'd snap a picture and send it. My wet fingers, evidence. "Want them in my mouth," he'd write back in full capitals. We were fluent in each other's desire by then. No preamble needed. We sexted everywhere. In the bath, Velvet Ruin playlist bleeding through the speaker, steam rising around me while his words lit up my phone. In my bedroom with the TV on for cover, James out on the couch down the hall, close enough that I had to keep my sounds to myself. I'd snap photos and send them, and he'd send them back. Dick pics, nudes, the occasional video. Once I messaged him when I knew he was at dinner with his kids. "Show me," I wrote. "Can't right now, babe, with the kids." I asked again anyway, and he went into his bathroom and took a photo of his now very aroused cock and sent it to me. Because I asked. Because neither of us knew how to stop. The exchanges came in flashes, each one landing like a match strike. I'd be sitting in the chair in my bedroom, legs curled under me, phone in both hands, the house quiet around me. I saw a picture of you and it made me hot. You know what happened next. I want to kiss you, to squeeze you, to wrap myself around you entirely. I'd be in the bath, Velvet Ruin playlist on the speaker, steam rising. I can't wait to feel my cock, slowly, beyond slowly, sliding inside you. Want to fall asleep with my cock inside you. As you kiss me and press your hot skin against mine, our tongues finding each other. Late at night, James asleep down the hall, the house dark. I want to kiss every inch of your body, my lips, my tongue, all of you, up and down and everywhere. Oh God, baby, crazy horny, came so hard before, jerking off thinking about you. You smell and feel so good. Love kissing you. Our tongues are one. I need to again. Soon. Let's have a weekend tryst. Yes, please. Standing in the kitchen making coffee, the ordinary morning of a life I was only half inside. You make me so hard. Imagine rubbing my cock against your clit. I'm imagining that right now with my hand. Baby, put your fingers inside. I loved when he called me baby. They are so wet, so wet. Not fair. You're so sexy. I want to devour your ass, finger your pussy, and lick your ass. Same. You just made me more wet. Imagine bending over for me while I'm sitting in a chair, your pussy and ass right there for me to devour. I imagine that a lot, actually. Nikki. Just my name, like punctuation, like he'd run out of words and landed on the only one that mattered. Dick pics and nudes flying back and forth, the occasional video. Tell me you played with your nipples to make them that hot. Just came in the shower, babe. I love how wet you sound in that video. They kept coming and coming. We were hot and heavy, playful and fun and sexy as hell. It went on for weeks, back and forth, building something in language that we couldn't seem to sustain in person, or that he wouldn't let us sustain in person. Because that was the thing about David Rose and his sexting. He was fully present there, in the space between messages, in a way he could never quite manage to be anywhere else. The phone was where he was safe. The phone was where he could want me without it costing him anything. And then, as reliably as weather, mid-June arrived. The messages shifted first. No boners right now, kids are around. Then slowed, then thinned to almost nothing. The heat dialed down by degrees until I realized I was the only one still reaching. His son graduated that year, a week or two before mine. I saw a story he posted, him and his son, proud and beaming, and I commented, "Congrats, you look hot." Because he did, and because I couldn't help myself, and because some part of me was still reaching for any thread I could find. He replied, "Thanks." That was it. Just thanks. A week later, my son graduated. Colin, my firstborn, crossing a stage I had dreamed about since before he could walk. I was in the kitchen the morning of the party, preparing food, the house filling up around me with people who loved him, and my phone buzzed. "David, congrats." I stood there at the counter holding it. The same word he'd give a LinkedIn connection. The same word you type when you can't be bothered to feel anything. I had told this man things I had never told another person. I had sent him pieces of myself in the dark, in the bath, in the quiet hours when everyone else was asleep. And my son's graduation got the same congrats as a stranger's promotion. His distance had become so loud, I couldn't hear anything else over it. What I hadn't mentioned yet was that sometime in the days before my son's graduation, I had noticed that David had unfollowed me. Again. I messaged him about it. He denied it, said these things happened, that it didn't mean anything, and followed me back instantly. But the silence had been growing louder for weeks, and now this. Something was up. He was treating me like a fool, and I was done pretending not to notice. It was childish. It was rude. And it was what finally stirred me into asking the question I'd been sitting on since the Upper West Side, since the in-laws' apartment, since that lunch in Soho, since all the small things I'd filed away and refused to examine. I put my phone down and finished preparing the food. Later, when the party was winding down and the kitchen had emptied out and I finally had a moment alone, I picked my phone and messaged him. I had questions, ones I didn't want to ask but knew I had to. The indifference was eating me up alive. I needed answers. I needed solace. My suspicions had crept back in. the ones I'd been sitting on since the Upper West Side stay at the in-laws' apartment, since all the small things I'd filed away and refused to examine. I asked him directly, "Are you back with your wife? Like, really back?" "Yes," he said. "I told you I was." "No," I wrote back. "You said you were back in the family home because of the kids." "We agreed to keep it casual," he said. "It's all I can do." I stared at that. We agreed to keep it casual. As if that had ever been said. As if I had ever agreed to anything of the sort. "You made it sound like you were there for the kids," I told him. "You weren't clear. You're never clear." That triggered him. "I don't like your judgment," he wrote. "Thank God I'm walking into my therapist's office right now." I told him to go fuck himself. Again. I put my phone down. He had done it again, rewritten the terms, repositioned himself as the reasonable one, made my anger the problem, and then walked into therapy to process it, presumably, while I sat alone with the mess of it. Here's the thing nobody says about us, about the back and forth, the go fuck yourselves, the unfollowing and refollowing, all of it. None of it would have happened if he'd just been honest from the beginning. If he hadn't ended up back with his wife. If he hadn't omitted the things he omitted, said the things he said, let me believe what he let me believe. With someone like me, someone who won't just sit back and absorb the silence, who will push until she gets an answer, his vagueness was always going to become a confrontation. I wasn't going to let it lie. I never do. And that made for an uncomfortable situation, especially for a man who wasn't mature enough to handle being held accountable. But had he been mature enough in the first place, we never would have gotten here. The volatility wasn't us. It was the inevitable result of his dishonesty meeting my refusal to be fooled. Part of me wonders, looking back, whether he enjoyed it a little, in a sick way. The push and the explosion and the reset, it had a rhythm to it that suited a man who ran hot and cold for sport. And I already knew, with the particular exhaustion of someone who has learned nothing and everything simultaneously, that it wouldn't be the last time. It never is with him. Chapter 15, Longing into the Void. Our son got into his first choice college. We were proud, uncomplicated proud, the kind that cuts through everything else for a moment and just is. James and I drove him up together, helped him move into his dorm, all possibility and clean surfaces, and the particular bittersweet ache of watching your child step into his own life. James and I stood in that dorm room knowing that in 4 years, once Penelope finished high school, we'd finally start whatever came next for us too. It was an unspoken agreement we'd arrived at without much ceremony. See the kids through, then make it official. In the meantime, we'd play nice. That wasn't hard to do. We were best friends and still got along very well. I just wasn't in love. I needed that more than anything. James spent most of his time in Charleston after that, helping his ailing parents. So it was me, Penelope, and our dog Coco. Girl power, survival mode, a quiet house that was easier to manage than a full one. I was glad for the simplicity of it. I was also, if I'm being completely honest, glad for the space to be as obsessed with David Rose as I wanted, without having to hide it quite so carefully. I could leave my journal out on the nightstand, open to whatever I'd been writing, without worrying that someone would find it and read it. That sounds like a small thing. It wasn't. Because he still lived rent-free in my head, fully furnished, no signs of vacating. I'd look him up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, a rotation, a ritual, embarrassingly consistent. His accounts were mostly private, which was its own kind of torment. So I found his wife's account, which was public, and I'd scroll through it with the focused attention of a detective who has absolutely no business being on this case. A new photo. Are they good? Are they happy? He didn't like that post. Trouble in paradise? I am not proud of any of this. I'm telling you anyway because it's the truth, and because I suspect I'm not the only woman who has ever done it, even if most of us take it to our graves. This went on for years. It still does, if I'm being honest, which apparently I am. I'd sit in bed at night, the television on in the background, sound muffled by my own obsessive thoughts, and scroll in the dark with my phone held close to my face like it might give me something I hadn't found yet. I'd scroll in the bath, too. Bubbles all around me, velvet ruin on the speaker, a glass of wine perched on the ledge, the white and blue tiled walls holding the steam in. My fingers frantically searching for any semblance of him anywhere. It was a vicious circle with the normalcy of a heartbeat, the kind you can't live without even when you know it's killing you. Penelope was difficult in the way that teenagers are difficult when they're carrying things they don't have words for. And she was carrying a lot. Her parents in a years-long holding pattern of almost divorced, the house still technically shared, the story she'd been told about her family constantly shifting underneath her. She was hormonal and confused and working too much and staying out too late, and her room looked like a crime scene I'd learned not to investigate. And somewhere in all of it, she lost her virginity, which I only learned after the fact, and which added another layer to an already complicated season of her life. Mostly we got along, laughing in the car, cooking together sometimes, the easy companionship of two people who actually like each other underneath the friction. And then one day something shifted, and she became hateful toward me in a way I didn't see coming and couldn't fully explain. Not the rolling eye teenager kind of hateful, something harder and more pointed. I absorbed it the way mothers absorb things, told myself it was the divorce, told myself it would pass, kept showing up anyway. The job that came next took me everywhere. Different cities, different offices, different time zones. The kind of project that keeps you moving fast enough that you don't have to sit still with your own thoughts for too long. I was setting up tech offices across the country, which sounds administrative and was in the best possible way. Concrete, logistical, mine to execute without anyone looking over my shoulder. I was good at it. I was always good at it. I went to California too. Of course I did. Every time I was in the Bay Area, I felt the pull of it, the specific awareness of being in his city, breathing his air, possibly crossing paths with his morning routine without either of us knowing it. I didn't reach out. I had told him to go fuck himself in June, and I meant it. Or I was performing meaning it, which amounts to the same thing behaviorally, if not emotionally. I kept his Twitter on rotation. I checked his wife's Instagram the way some people check the weather, reflexively, first thing, looking for signs of what the day might bring. Nothing ever came up that answered anything. Everything came up that answered everything. I became very skilled at reading meaning into the absence of posts, the presence of posts, the specific quality of a smile in a family photo, the way she tagged locations or didn't. I was a detective with no case and too much time, and an unwillingness to close the file. I was single parenting and working and building Goddess in whatever margins were left. The brand was becoming real. Products formulated, a real identity taking shape, followers and momentum. I worked out every day, sometimes twice, because the endorphins were the only thing that reliably cleared my head. I looked extraordinary and had absolutely no one to look extraordinary for, which was its own particular kind of grief. At some point, I decided what I needed was cosmic intervention. I booked an appointment with a top astrologer, the kind you wait almost a year to see, which should tell you something about either her accuracy or the desperation of her clientele, possibly both. I sat in her small office, warm and intentional, an array of different sized framed pieces covering the walls, low light from the ceiling, the kind of moody environment that felt slightly witchy in exactly the way I liked. It felt like the right place to ask the universe to explain itself. She was remarkably good, specific in ways that were difficult to dismiss. She told me that David and I had lived 2 past lives together. In the first, I wronged him. In the second, he wronged me. 3rd time's a charm, and look where we are. A perfect standoff of accumulated karmic debt, soul-tied across lifetimes. Which at least explains why I can't seem to quit him, no matter how many times I tell him to go fuck himself. She told me we would stop talking for good in 2024. We did. End of 2023. Close enough that I stopped arguing with the stars. She told me my husband had been my child in a past life, which, she said with some delicacy, might explain the dynamic. I laughed for a long time at that one. It explained a lot, actually. And she told me my business was exactly right for my chart, that Goddess was aligned with something cosmically ordained for me, and that it would really take off in 2024 to 2025. I'm still waiting on that particular prophecy to fully deliver, though I suppose the universe works on its own timeline, not mine. I made my own Instagram public around this time, ostensibly no reason in particular, definitely so he could see how good I looked if he happened to check. And I looked good. If David Rose was going to be out there living his life, he was going to do it knowing exactly what he was missing. Petty? Absolutely. Effective? Unknown. Satisfying? Immensely. Until I'd sit in my dark bedroom at night, weed pen in hand, growing paranoid. Was that post stupid? Do I look desperate? Is he even checking? Maybe I should take it down, make my account private again. This is what happens when I smoke weed. It's what happens when most people do, I think. Only most people aren't obsessed with a married man in California who may or may not be looking. He was still doing his blocking and unblocking routine, which I had stopped finding hurtful and started finding almost funny. Almost. I leaned into it, liked and commented on the same mutual friends' posts he did. A little nudge, a little, I see you. I don't know if he noticed. I told myself he did. Then a mutual friend died, Matt. I was sitting with James at a restaurant, visiting our son at college, when my phone buzzed and his name lit up the screen. My eyeballs nearly popped out of my head. David Rose, after months of silence, sending his condolences and addressing them to both of us. Sorry to hear about Matt. Hope you guys are doing okay. You guys. My blood started boiling before I finished reading the sentence. The nerve of him. We were not you guys. We were not a unit he got to address casually, like a Christmas card he'd received once and felt obligated to acknowledge. This was a man who had been inside me, who had called me baby in the dark and asked to feel his cock slowly sliding inside me, and told me he'd come so hard thinking about me. And now I was you guys, lumped in with my husband, reduced to a collective, dismissed in 2 words. It hurt. It infuriated me. It made me feel like nothing, like a casual fuck who had briefly entertained him between the real chapters of his life. To him, maybe that's exactly what I was. To me, it was way more. It had always been way more. And the casualness of that message, the complete absence of any acknowledgement of what existed between us, felt like an erasure. Like he'd opened a drawer, seen something he didn't want to deal with, and closed it again without looking. I didn't respond for 2 days. Not out of strategy, out of genuine, sputtering fury. When I finally responded, I just wrote, "Thank you." That was it. Until one day, lying in bed, I texted him a sexy picture of myself. I had put effort into it. A navy blue silk and lace tank, short, my legs looking long and thin and soft, my breasts peeking out just enough. I looked good, and I knew it. Then immediately followed it with, "Please delete, not meant for you." But it really was. I wanted him to want me. I needed him to want me. Some part of me knew he was being good, trying to stay in his lane, and I should have respected that. I couldn't. I just couldn't stop reaching for him. The sending of it felt like a small act of reclamation. I exist. I'm here. Look what you're missing. And the moment it left my hands, I wanted to crawl out of my skin. He replied with a laughing emoji. "No worries." That was it. No heat. No, "Oh God, babe." Just no worries. I had put myself in yet another situation designed to make me feel like shit, and it had delivered on schedule. I did wonder afterward whether he'd actually deleted it, or whether, like me, he kept our photos and exchanges hidden somewhere, a private folder, a secret archive, the record of something that officially never happened. New chapters of The Unraveling drop every Monday. We all have secrets, some we never say out loud. If you have a story that lives in the dark, obsession, betrayal, heartbreak, desire, reinvention, I want to hear it. Send me an email at lipservice68@gmail.com or find me on YouTube at Scarlett After Dark Official. Your secrets are safe with me. Let's tell your story.
This is Scarlett After Dark. Scarlett After Dark. Scarlett After Dark. Scarlett